Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
It's finally that time of year, Rams. The ASCSU spring election for your student government is here. ASCSU is responsible for funding so many important programs, such as Ramride, student organizations, Transfort, the Rec Center, Rams Against Hunger, and so much more.
Candidates for President and Vice President, Speaker of the Senate, and Senators have started campaigning on the plaza, so get out and engage with your student body government. This is the time and opportunity to make your voice heard, so get out and vote. Keep an eye out for QR codes around campus for easy and quick access to voting information. Students will be able to vote for candidates on March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st for the 2021 ASCSU elections.
Directed question for the candidates. We move on to 45 seconds for general questions and 30 seconds for every rebuttal. We'll be receiving questions throughout the night, and for those watching at home, you can submit questions through the... What happened? Well, that's good, because I hated how I started.
You did great.
All right. Good evenings. God. Good evening, my name is Ren Wadsworth, and I will be tonight's moderator for the 2021-2022 debate for the next president of the Associated Students of Colorado State University. A couple debate ground rules. We'll have an opening statement that will be 1 minute for each candidate. We'll have directed questions that will also be 1 minute, and general questions that will be 45 seconds. Every rebuttal that a candidate has will be 30 seconds. For those watching at homes, you can submit questions through the live chat on the stream on YouTube. Please make sure it is clear in your question which candidate or candidates the question is directed to. The chat will be moderated by members of the election committee, and CTV does not endorse any specific candidate, but seeks to provide fair and equal coverage of all the candidates. We'll start with a general question for all candidates, which is, what do you think the focus of Associate Students of Colorado State University should be this year? We'll start with Williamson.
Hey, my name is John Williamson, and I believe that the focus of the Associated Students of Colorado State University should be, as it says in the preamble of the Constitution, to provide equal opportunity to participate fully in both its formal and informal activities. Every single student here at CSU should have the opportunity and the ability to fully partake in every aspect of the college experience. And I don't believe the college experience should be relegated to just the classroom. What the college experience is the people you meet, the memories you make, and the things you do. It should be a holistic experience, not something just relegated by what you've seen on media. It's not just in the classroom, and that shouldn't define your college experience. It should be whoever you meet, it should be whatever you do, and the memories you keep with you for the rest of your life. Thank you.
And that's my mistake. We will start with opening statements from all the candidates. Let's start with Christian Dykson.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's watching. My name is Christian Dykson. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm just honored to be here and so excited. A little bit of background about myself. I'm a second-year political science student. I'm minoring in natural resource economics and Spanish, and I'm currently serving as the Speaker of the Senate for ASCSU, which is our student government, right? Many folks don't know that. About 40% of our campus knows what ASCSU is, and we want to change that. Right, the vision that I have for our university is, what if we could create a culture where every person, every story, every voice is heard on this campus, right? And I want you to know that we care about that. If you feel like you've been silenced, or you feel like you've been boxed in, or you feel like you haven't had that platform, Mary and I, our commitment is to use our platform, to use our microphone, to use the spotlight, and to put it on other students, right? And that's the one thing you'll notice when you look at the other candidates and you look at our campaign is the story of the stories around us. Our story is the story of the stories around us, and that's the vision, is the other people's faces, their stories, their hopes for our campus, and we just want to open that platform. So I hope you'll join the vision.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lys Taddei. I am running for president along with my friend Weston Schroeder, who's running for vice. Now, my major is interior architecture and design with a minor in ideation, and I am so excited to be here. I am here to make promises to you, promises of commitment and promises of kindness. Now, this last year has been incredibly difficult, and I plan to address that. Who's ready for an exciting fall 2021?
Cinque Mason.
Hi, I'm Cinque Mason, third-year communications major. I'm running along with Lydia Zuklik, and she's a business major. We're going to focus on 3 things next year. Reclaiming the lost year. This year was a highly emotional year due to the isolation from COVID. We lost a lot of loved ones that faced a lot of emotional pain. Our second thing we'd like to focus on is the green and gold goals. This is a part of a bigger fight. This is a part of a bigger picture. We want to eliminate single-use plastics on campus. We want to redivert food from the dining halls that's previously thrown away to students or other people's bellies. The third thing we want to do is continuing the fight of U+2. Right now, I'm the current intern for Joyce McConnell. I've been working with the administration for about 1.5 years now, previously in the for student affairs. And I've done some work with organizing protests over the summer.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, it's just your opening statement.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is John Williamson. I'm running with David Pringle. Our mission to be your student body president revolves solely around ensuring students each and every one of you are given the opportunity to participate in the college experience. And to me, the college experience isn't about specifically just the classroom or what your GPA is or the things you do with the schoolwork. The college experience should be a holistic one where it is including the friends you meet, the memories you make, and the things you do. What David and I want to do is create a way for people to get engaged on campus. That's through extracurricular scholarships. We're going to help with fundraising, so that student organizations who've lost the ability to fundraise because of COVID can regain their strength in numbers and their ability to help campus. Because the student organizations are the heart of the campus. It's not the individual students, it's the organizations and the students together. Without that working together and without a student organization, you can't do much.
I wanted to thank you for prematurely answering that question before, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to answer it again, which is, what do you think the focus of ASCSU this year should be?
Thank you. So, like I said earlier, it's in the preamble of the ASCSU Constitution. It's to ensure equality and inclusivity for all, to participate fully in both the formal and informal activities of college. And that really should always be the focus, making sure that the students have the opportunity to do what they want to do here at CSU, to make sure that they can have the opportunity instead of just the option. What I want to make sure every single student knows is ASCSU is for the students. It's not a bunch of people leading you or spending your money. It's a place for your voice to be heard. And that's what it should always be, not just a bunch of students in a leadership position. Thank you.
Same question to you, Cinque.
I think that we should be really working on building connections and running events. As we all know, the past year, going on to 1.5 years in a few months, will be spent a lot in isolation. If we can really provide an opportunity for others to communicate with each other, build bonds, build lifelong bonds, we can all have greater opportunity, if you will, through meeting people, through the connections that we gain through the year.
Christian?
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to start with our 3 core values, right? Radical inclusion, transparency, and stewardship. And when we say radical inclusion, what we mean by that is we want to take the focal point, like I said, off of Mary and I, and put it on you. Right? Put it on the students who often don't have a voice in student government. Swing the gates open on student government where it's something that everyone and anyone can see and engage in. Right? We have to prove that ASCSU, with our $1.3 million budget, that we can speak to an impact of $1.3 million. I don't think we're in that position right now, but I think through transparency, through our commitments of radical inclusion, through stewardship, I think we can start to create that environment where the ideas and the solutions all across campus that often don't materialize, that they can start to materialize. And how does that happen? It's through intentional listening and storytelling. It's through us having the willingness and the curiosity to know your expertise and your wisdom.
And Liz.
Hello. ASCSU is frankly quite special in the fact that we represent the students, and I would like to express my disappointment in ASCSU for previously not representing the students. The reason why I am sitting here today is because I did not feel represented. So I decided to take initiative, and I decided to run. Now that being said, the job of president and vice president is to bridge the gap between the administration and the students, and I will do that thoroughly. I am very excited to represent you, and I'm ready to build the bridge. Thank you.
Moving on to a candidate-specific question, Christian Dykson, one of your focuses this year is making U+2 a reality, which is something that every other presidential candidate before you has almost made. What makes you different?
Yeah, every candidate has mentioned it, and our approach is different because Mary and I recognize that ASCSU doesn't have the power to change U+2, right? It can't pass a bill or a resolution to change it, but what we can do is build relationships with the folks who are the leaders of Fort Collins, who control the reins of Fort Collins. And you've seen that in the way that we approach it, right? With our city manager, Darren Atterbury, here in Fort Collins, right? The Chamber of Commerce President and CEO, Ann Hutchison. We have a curiosity to build relationship with those individuals, and we interviewed both of them, and we asked them those questions. What's the next step for U+2, right? What if we could tell a story of U+2 from the perspective of students and community members, the brutal, unfiltered reality of this policy? Right? What if we could tell the stories of landlords who won't even replace bathroom fans because they have so much leverage over the renters? We want to fight for you, and we have the capability and the relationships in place to make that happen. That's our approach.
Another candidate-specific question to Cinque. As a presidential candidate, why is sustainability a main concern of yours?
Well, a few reasons that sustainability is a main concern of ours. One, it's just part of a bigger fight. 20, 30 years from now, if we don't act on climate change, it's going to be impacting Colorado. It's not just going to be impacting oceanside towns anymore. This is a part of something that we all need to be working towards. One of Joyce's goals is to bring CSU down to net zero by 2030. This is a part of like a bigger picture of CSU. We can be a global leader in not just curriculum of how we teach about climate change, but in actually doing. We can do sustainability through carbon capturing technology, through eliminating single use, and through food waste.
Question for all the candidates is going to be, how do you plan to deliver on transparency? We'll start with Liz.
Making sure that that CSU and ASCSU are working soundly together is our first task. Now, I would love to audit, just what the university is spending money on. That way we can deliver that information back to you, the students who are ultimately paying for that. Honesty is very, very important. And like I said before, my job as president is to build a bridge from the administration back to you.
John?
My answer to that question would be as proactive as I can possibly be. I'll say it right now, I'm not a perfect person, nor do I have a perfect plan for every single situation that can arise. There are things that you cannot predict, yet there are things you can do to proactively approach situations that haven't occurred yet. Transparency is incredibly important because it is the cornerstone of trust, and trust is the cornerstone of any relationship. Establishing trust is the primary goal of our campaign in the first few days of it, creating our cabinet. We're going to be as proactive as possible telling you that we don't know some things. And we're going to be open to listening to things so we can, in fact, make better informed choices for you and listen to you with our hopefully presence being on the plaza at least once a week to listen to student voices.
Christian?
Yeah, so I think first of all, we think that transparency is honesty. Right? It's being honest about where every dollar in ASCSU is going. And you look at a $1.3 million budget, right? $1.3 million. Students are paying the tab. You are paying the tab. So what would it look like for us to re-up our commitment? One of the ideas that we have is, like, picture the New York Stock Exchange, Wall Street, right? What if we had an idea like that, right? Picture the numbers, the clicking, the activity. If we had that on our website, right, where every time that we spend 10 cents or $40 or $100,000, it has a description of exactly where it's being spent in a comment feature for community members. It's little things like that where you can come to us and say, why are you spending $100 on Raising Cane's? I know I've given this example before. If I can't even pay for my next meal, you can start to hold us accountable, and that's a commitment that Mary and I have, one of many ideas that we have for transparency.
And Cinque?
I think it's a good question of what kind of transparency you're speaking about. Are you speaking about monetarily, how we're speaking to the administration, what our inside meetings looking like? Because all of those, we would address that differently. I really enjoy Christian's idea of the New York Stock Exchange. I think there's something similar like that, but I really like how his is more real time, and also tabling. We would like to table on the plaza, have a QR code so when people are going by, they can say something, they can come speak to me, or they can write down something and put it in a suggestion box. We'd like to be as transparent as possible.
Another question for all the candidates is, how do you plan to be a government that works for the students? We'll start with John.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's in the ASCSU Constitution that is a government for the students, by the students. It starts with getting engagement on campus, and that's done through many ways, whether it's tabling, social media, website. The important thing is that we let students understand that they have a place in ASCSU. As it currently stands, ASCSU is a relatively hostile environment, which a lot of students aren't comfortable going towards or to. We want to be different. We want to make sure that we have a presence outside of ASCSU so students can get to know us individually, get their voices heard in a way that they're comfortable with, not in a way that they have to come to us, but we can go to them. That's what we're about, and that's how we're going to go about doing that.
Same question to you, Cinque.
The question was, how are we going to ensure that the ASCSU government works for the students? Well, first off, we're all students, so we're working for students. That's the number one thing. Our cabinet selections are going to be students. They're the ones that are reporting to me, that I would be reporting to administration of something I would want to see changed or something that we want to see changed. Yeah, just speaking at forums, speaking at town halls, or speaking to SDPS offices, FSL, anything like that, colleges, college councils, and receiving input like that. That's the best way that we can work for someone, is finding out what we need to change. And one more thing is also just relying on our previous friendships. Everybody has a very unique perspective of what's going on, and they can all tell you something that you would just be like, you'd be ignorant to.
And Liz.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. It's going to be, how do you plan to be a government that works for the students?
Perfect. Okay, so this starts at unity between the students and ASCSU, and also inside of the ASCSU office. Now, it is really important to unite our team because, as previously mentioned, ASCSU is frankly very hostile and just not a great place to be currently. Now, that can be alleviated and fixed with a very few simple changes. We need to make sure that the mindset of ASCSU, all the goals are the same. And understanding people on a personal level will help us achieve that goal. We're not all going to get along, however, making sure there's equal respect and dignity will be the key to a successful office. We aren't just going to listen to your questions, we are going to work with you to find solutions. Thank you.
And Christian.
Yeah, you know, I think it's a question of changing the focal point, right? Changing the point of attention. Is it on the ASCSU office, or is it on the plaza? Is it on our offices and our job titles, or is it on the SDPS offices, right? Or the IM fields, or the places where we build community? We think if we can change that focal point, it could create the change that we're fighting for. And we've realized, I mean, elected officials, and especially ASCSU people, they should not be further away from the people who elected them. They should be closer. They should be the most accessible, the most responsive, the most engaged, and the most communicative with you all. And that's the vision that Mary and I want to fight for, right? So what would it look like if we took all of our desks, this may not be pragmatic, but took all of our desks onto the plaza and worked a whole day there, right? Or in front of Sweet Sensations, if we just set up and worked there. We want to be where you are because we know you all often don't come to us.
Just a reminder, you can submit questions on the live chat, but please make sure you indicate which candidate or candidates your question is directed towards. That being said, I have a candidate-specific question for Liz, which is, how do you plan to make the campus unified under your Forever Unified plan?
All right, thank you so much for that question. Now, it starts with engagement, and I am so excited because I have so many creative ideas. So one way that I thought of unifying the campus is, what if ASCSU had like a board game day? Now, what we could do is get giant versions of like our lawn games, I'm sure you're familiar with that, and then just lay that out. Now, that being said, that's more unity within the students in ASCSU. Now, how will I make sure that unity is throughout the campus? Well, by addressing your needs and letting you know that there's a seat at the table for you. Come sit with us. We would love to hear your point of view and your perspective because you are important. You make this campus. Thank you.
Another candidate-specific question, this time for John, is going to be, for your $500 scholarship plan, how do you plan to raise and secure funding for this?
So first off, it goes into the $900 each student, around $900 each student pays every single semester in student fees. Now, a lot of that is already allocated to things students really have no say in anymore. That's controlled by the Board of Governors. What we're referring to is less than 3% of student fees controlled by ASCSU. Now, something that no candidate prior has really thought about is fundraising. Why don't we have an entrepreneurial approach to this? Why don't we use some of the money we have right now to have student events that can act as fundraisers, in which we can support the student organizations, in which we can raise money, so we can support the students who are supporting us, to make sure that every single student has that opportunity. And a lot of the opportunity comes from, are you willing to not work for this couple of hours that you're at this? Or do you have the money to join this specific club? We want to make sure that we're bridging that gap instead of just voicing that it should be bridged. That's what we're about here. Thank you.
You have a rebuttal?
Yeah, and I just want to build on that idea. I think if we take that concept of fundraising and expand on it, what would it look like? I mean, what would it look like for ASCSU to be a grant-giving organization? Right, like if that's a long-term vision, we're looking at, 3% of student fees. What if that could be utilized in every possible way to bring together the ideas that you all have for our campus, right, where you need $300, $400, $200, $1,000. What if we could look at $1.3 million and say that can go in a lot of different directions and serve every pocket of our community? That is something that Mary and I want to fight for.
A question from the chat for all of the candidates is, what is your plan for hiring a qualified and diverse cabinet from the student body? And how do you plan to find the best suited candidates from all of CSU, not just the small circles surrounding ASCSU? We'll start with Liz.
It's very important to make sure that we're reaching all communities inside of CSU. Now, how we could go about that is through social media and emails, et cetera, so forth, and I think that would be incredibly important. And also incentivizing and encouraging people to apply. Once again, letting them know that ASCSU is not meant to be a clique and that there is a seat at the table for you.
Hey, Christian, the same question to you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, no, it's a long one. It says, what is your plan for hiring a qualified and diverse cabinet from the student body, and how do you plan to find the best suited candidates from all of CSU, not just the small circles surrounding ASCSU?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge, obviously, the privileges that I hold. And, I mean, that was one of the things when I considered, when we were going into this process of Mary Gibrasatic can speak to an identity and experience that I don't have, right? And we know our Student Diversity and Program Services Office, they always tell us, all of the offices usually say, nothing about us without us. What does that mean? It means we need to invite them in more than just, we need to go beyond tokenism, right? We need to invite them in and give them a power seat at the table. One of the ideas, right? Work with the SDPS offices, work with key communities, work with college councils, all of those groups and leverage our shared network. That is ASCSU superpower, is to leverage the network in order to reach those voices. And we need you at the table. We need you in our circle because we can't do it without you all. You have lived experience that we can't speak to, and that's why we're inviting you in.
Same question to you, Cinque.
Yeah, after we come up with the definitions of the cabinet positions and all that stuff, and we see what we want and what we don't want, We would like to hire the most passionate and competent people when it comes to that position. And the hiring process would be going along the lines of reaching out to something like Slice that has access to all the emails or student orgs on campus and asking them to send out a specific email saying, hey, please apply for this. We have several positions such as this, this, and this. That's all.
John.
Definitely. The cabinet is one of the most important parts of any presidency. Without a cabinet, you really can't do much because everything you want to do requires a team to support you. Looking at our cabinet selections, we're not looking for people who blindly agree with us. If anything, we're looking for people who are willing to challenge us because with the challenges creates growth. We're not going to, like some other candidates have said, rely upon prior friendships and nepotism to secure candidate positions for our friends. We'll be looking at every single person as an individual to understand what they are doing here, why they want to be here, and their passion for helping us in our administration to create these opportunities for students, not just opportunities for our friends. And that's what we're really about. Thank you.
A question from the chat for Cinque is, how do you plan to make the Undie Run a university-sanctioned tradition when CSU administration has historically disapproved and condemned this event?
Yeah, so the thing about the Undie Run is that it's going to happen. I think we have all seen the power of social media through that snowball fight that happened the other day. The power of social media is quite immense. It's going to happen, and the best way to reverse the damages done by the Undie Run is to sanction it through having CSO officers or having a purpose behind the Undie Run. That's the best way that we can go. And we have to take steps to get to this. We have to find a healthy compromise. It's not just going to be this or that. We have to find a healthy compromise. We are advocating on behalf of the students. This isn't a recognized tradition, but this is a tradition within the hearts of students. So we're advocating for that passion of students to do something like that. Because I can tell you what is going to happen. And we just want to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible.
A question for all candidates is, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to speak on that, actually. So I'm going to bring this up again. The ASCSU Constitution is very explicit in this. We want to make sure that students have the ability to participate in formal and informal activities. To bring our administration to condone this also condones everything that goes along with it. The sexual harassment, the assaults, all of that together. And I'm not going to disagree with Cinque. There's not really much we can do to control it. However, we can set the narrative with it and saying there are dangers to this. We don't support everything this stands for. However, we do support your opportunity.
Thank you. Sorry.
Are you going to give me
Yeah, would you like a rebuttal?
So that wasn't a question, but we're not condoning anything like sexual assault. Women are allowed to wear whatever they want and not be at fear of getting sexually assaulted. That's not at all what we're saying or anything like that.
Alrighty. Moving on to another general question. It would be, how would you move money in offices and branches in ASCSU as president? Christian, if you'd like to begin.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, so $1.3 million, right? If you do a breakdown of that, $700,000 goes to the Rocky Mountain Student Media Corporation, who's filming this entire event, CTV, KCSU, all of those groups, the Collegian. I think as you keep going down, $200,000 for the board for student organization funding, $100,000 for Senate, all of these pockets where funding goes, it's not really clear, right? So transparency needs to be in place in order for the student body to guide us as we make solutions and decisions on where those funds go. I think one of the things that Mary and I are committed to, we're committed to basic needs, right? We realize if we have an opportunity to invest in mental health resources and food insecurity, right, going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we cannot master the basics, it is difficult for us to achieve more as students and as people. And so that's just a basic principle. Basic needs should be put first.
Thank you. The same question to you, John.
Yeah, definitely. So with the, like Christian said, $1.3 million, a lot of that is already allocated to various student programs, things that employ students and really bring a sense of community to the campus. And there's not much we can do to move those around. However, if we could raise more money, we could move more money, help more people. And like Christian had said earlier, it would be amazing if we could give money to the students who need it so they could participate and move to these opportunities that they're provided. It takes a lot of money to run different organizations, but it doesn't take a lot of effort to spend it wisely. And that's what we're about. We're trying to make sure that we have informed decisions where this money goes and to make sure that this money goes to places where it's actually needed, actually used. Thank you.
Did you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I think it's just also important to recognize the history here. So in 2018, they lost almost $400,000. $400,000 of your money was misplaced, and that was before they brought in the accounting team and the controller and all of the positions that they have now. But that speaks to our ideal of stewardship. We realize financial stewardship means if we don't know how to steward your dollars, then we're doing something wrong, right? We have to know where every penny goes. And that goes back to our idea of the website, right? Where you can hold us accountable to every penny that is spent and slow down the river of student fee dollars that is flowing into ASCSU. And I don't think we're having the impact for that amount of money.
Liz?
So this starts at being realistic. We want to rebuild better. We want to come back from this COVID year as honest and as quickly and safely as possible. Now that being said, we are going to find ways to save. Now, how are we going to do that? There is always an inefficiency somewhere, and it's finding that inefficiency that's going to lead to us saving money and cutting costs, and that's our ultimate goal. We want to save this money in simple ways, like just turning off the lights at 10 p.m. It's very easy and to do, and by doing that, we are going to be able to get that money back to you. Thank you.
And Cinque?
Would you please restate the question?
Yes, of course. So how would you move money in offices and branches in ASCSU as president?
So after we come up with the definitions of the cabinet positions, we will need to see what's going to need more money than other positions. And then working along with long-term goals and then seeing how much money that's going to cost and then pre-allocating that. And I really enjoy Christian's idea. It's a good idea of the stock, like the New York Stock Exchange ticker looking thing. And it would just show how that money is being spent once it's allocated to each cabinet and position like that.
Alrighty. A question from the chat again is going to be for Christian this time. How can you expect to bridge the divide between the Senate and the executive branch as president?
Yeah. I appreciate that question. I felt like at a lot of points during this year, it's kind of felt like I'm running between two camps, right? And I'm trying to send a message one direction and the other. And it's difficult, right? What I will stand behind is that I've been loyal to my team, to the Senate. And what I believe in and what I want to bring about is an environment where we can build a bridge between the two groups. And I think it starts with stories. I think it starts with authenticity. It starts with having a curiosity of, I know you have conclusions or beliefs, but what are the roots of that ideology that you carry or that passion that you're fighting for? I think if we can generate a sense of curiosity within the space, I think we can start to build a bridge. And I honestly think it starts with transparency, right? It starts with transparency when we know that the students are clear on how we're spending their dollars. When they know how those dollars are being spent, then we aren't at war with each other trying to ensure that, right? And it starts with being proactive and being preemptive and having those communication channels, and that's something that we need to be better about. Absolutely. I'll admit that, and I want to be a part of that solution, and it's something we're working towards.
Cinque, your rebuttal?
It's not much of a rebuttal. I just think it's great how he has experience of being Speaker of the Senate, but what are some stuff that you've learned from this position that you'd like to carry over into your...
What are some things that I've learned is just the complexity of the organization. I mean, it has taken me 2 years to even get a sense of how complex the network is, the student fee allocations, the budgetary allocations within Senate. All of those experiences position Mary and I in a way that we can advance and actualize our vision, and it being more than just empty promises, because we know the internal workings of the system. And many of the things that we've done, I mean, I've gotten to connect a lot with the Student Diversity and Program Services offices, right? Realizing nothing about them without them, I have that curiosity, and I've been able to foster that in the role.
Alrighty. And another candidate-specific question from the chat for Liz is going to be, what are your plans to make campus more accessible and sustainable during your term?
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm really excited about this because this is something that Weston and I have really focused on. As far as making the campus more environmentally friendly, we're going to do quite a few things. The first of that being is finding where we can save energy. It's a very simple solution. The second thing we are going to do is we are going to discover the tangibility of installing solar on new construction on campus. So why is this important? Well, what this is going to do for us is it's going to give us not only tax write-offs with the city, because when we generate power, we put it back into the Fort Collins power grid. And this will save us a lot of money. And we will also be reallocating those funds back into the students, back into your wallets, what have you. And another thing I would like to focus on is the cameras we are going to install in the classrooms, which has more to do with accessibility. Thank you.
Just a reminder that, oh, did you have a rebuttal, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, just an invitation really to the candidates at my side. Accessibility has to be a priority in everything that we do, right? Because accessibility is the difference between being able to access an experience and memory and not, right? So I would encourage the candidates at my side. I know there have been videos that have been posted that don't have closed captioning, right? Images that don't have image descriptions. And I'm not saying this as a means to push you all down, but to say, let's be better. Let's be better and let's be more accessible. That's my invitation to the folks at my side and to everyone in our community.
Just a reminder, you can submit questions for the candidate or candidates that you wish through the live chat. Moving on to another specific question for Cinque, it's, do you think your lack of experience in ASCSU should be considered by voters?
I think there's a better way of rephrasing that question. It could also seem like, do you think that your fresh set of eyes could benefit ASCSU? I think I have some leadership qualities that are helpful. I've done a lot of stuff on my own. I've organized protests over the summer. I've had to work with the speakers, the policemen, the mayor. I had to do all that stuff. I really know how to do some organizational communication and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what I'd like to say about that.
Your rebuttal, John?
I'd like to say I absolutely hate that question. I think that's a gatekeeping question. I don't think experience in ASCSU should determine your position in ASCSU. I feel like every single student should have the opportunity to run for president, vice president, senator, director of part of the cabinet. And I applaud Cinque for being here. He doesn't have that experience, but he does have those fresh eyes. That's why my vice president, a civil engineer who has no experience in ASCSU, is running with me. So we can bring those set of fresh eyes. Because it shouldn't be about experience in ASCSU. It should be about your experience as a student, which you bring forward to the leadership of the student body.
Your rebuttal, Christian?
Yeah, and I think it's also important to recognize that you'll hear a lot of policy ideas, a lot of solutions. Policies change. Doorways open and they close on policies. Core values are constant. That's what Mary and I are fighting for. If you vote for someone based on their core values, the allegiance doesn't end when the policy closes. It continues. The movement continues to build. We've sat down with people like Michael Buttram, right? Rocky Coleman. Michael Buttram oversees the food insecurity efforts. Rocky Coleman has been with Warner for 40 years. It's people like that. We're seeking the wisdom and not designing solutions that are already in place or already working. We have a curiosity to enhance the programs that are already in place.
A specific question for you, John, is you want to focus on student-centered fundraisers, and what is your plan to choose which organizations are supported by ASCSU and which would not be?
That's awesome. So my answer to that question is our fundraising events would be open to all campus organizations and student organizations, so that every single one has an opportunity to raise funds for their individual organization. Because those individual organizations have many students who are between many different organizations. So having an open option, an invitation to every single organization to participate in these fundraising activities, and also setting themselves apart at these fundraising activities. So the work they put in and the effort they put in is matched by the contributions that they get for it. Whether it be individual booths at a campus fundraising fair, or if it's something similar. Understanding that their ability to earn funds comes from their participation in these. So it would also increase student engagement on campus with ASCSU and other things like that. Thank you.
Alrighty. A question for everyone in the chat is, why is it so important for students to get engaged on campus? We'll begin with Liz.
I apologize. Student engagement is huge because at the end of the day, it is not the infrastructure that makes the campus, it is you. And now going out and realizing that there are plenty of opportunities just in the palm of your hand, that is what makes CSU so special. I really do encourage you to go out and to get involved with as many clubs and organizations as you possibly can, to meet as many people and view as many different perspectives as you can, because that is why you go to college. You come to college for your college experience, and I really encourage you to go out and really pick the fruit that CSU has to offer. Thank you.
Same question to you, Cinque.
Well, I think university is all about opportunity. You can learn everything we're learning online. There's great resources such as Khan Academy, YouTube, stuff like that. But you can't meet the people that we meet online. I could have never met these people or anybody else from behind my computer back at home, like back in Denver. opportunity is, your student experience is a lot of, your opportunity is a lot of your student experience, my bad.
Christian?
Yeah, I think it's twofold with involvement. I think, first of all, it's being involved. It helps when you are looking for resources, right? So I don't know if you or anyone in your network is feeling depressed right now, right? Is hitting a brick wall with your mental health or someone around you. See, and I recognize that, and I know that. And so I think involvement is being able to access resources and understand the plethora of resources that do exist, many of which we do still need to strengthen and enhance and market better. I think that's one reason to be involved. I think also on the solutions side, right? I'm thinking about Ramride, I'm thinking about SCSU, two ideas that came out of CSU, out of ASCSU, right? Solutions like that, you only know the potential of future solutions when you can recognize the ones in the past, like those two. And so when you come on a campus, I know you have an experience that I can't speak to, and I want to hear your solutions. I want to hear your ideas. Mary and I want to hear your ideas.
And John?
Awesome. So I'm going to start with a story about myself. After my mom was left in a pretty crippled state after a car accident and my father died, my first year here at CSU, without the connections I had to my involvement with different organizations on campus, I wouldn't be here today. I didn't have the support. I wouldn't have the support without those organizations that I was a part of. And it's important for every single person here at CSU to understand that with the 400 plus student organizations through Slice, there is a place for you. There is a community for you. There are people here to support you. COVID has brought up one of the most difficult times in modern history. And if you don't have that connection to people you can turn to for support, you will not succeed. It's incredibly hard for you to succeed. That's why you need to be engaged. You need to find that community that supports you. Thank you.
Your rebuttal.
Yeah, John, I appreciate you sharing that. And I just want to invite all of us as leaders on our campus to be vulnerable, right? And to be authentic, right? And just like you did right there, right? Like, I think the best way to get involved and for them to trust and know that we're representing you all is if we can be vulnerable. Right? What if we do a storytelling series with President McConnell and Tony Frank on the impacts that their mental health journey has had? Right? What if when you go to your ballot, the thing you're looking for is vulnerability and authenticity on that ballot, and not necessarily the perfect message or the perfect solutions? That's one thing that Mary and I recognize. We don't have the perfect solutions, but we do want to ask the right questions. So anyway, that's my invitation to us all. I hope we can fight for that.
And Liz, your rebuttal.
I have a rebuttal for Christian Dykson. Now, you say that it is important for a leader to be vulnerable, but wouldn't you also agree that it is very important for a leader to be strong and to know how to create solutions to those questions that are being asked of you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I agree on both counts. I think that vulnerability creates authentic experience, and authentic experience creates wisdom, and wisdom helps guide leaders. Right? We realize with all of these topics like U+2, we realize how unbelievably complex it is. That's why we're seeking the wisdom of people like Ann Hutchison and Darren Atterbury. They know the impacts that U+2 has had, and they also know why it's in place. And we need to find a balance between the two, right? We need to find solutions that can bridge that divide. And I think only through vulnerability do people want to listen to you, right? If they know that you're not perfect and you don't have all the right solutions. And I'm committed to creating that environment.
Another question for all the candidates from the chat is, how will you protect students' rights to freedom of speech, and what would you do if students' voices were being silenced? We'll start with John.
Definitely. So, to me, freedom of speech is an invitation to discussion on ideas you may or may not agree with. But discussion creates an understanding, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. It helps you build upon your character to be exposed to these ideas who may not represent you or what you believe in, but ideas that you should hear. And I'm not saying that every idea is worth your time and attention, but we shouldn't shoot down ideas just because we don't agree with them. We should at the very least open discussion so we can discuss these with each other as students, as friends, as a family. That's what I'd like to say to that. Thank you.
The same question to you, Liz.
Wonderful. So freedom of speech is incredibly important. That being that this CSU is a federally funded campus, that means you reserve your right to freedom of speech in every and any building or anywhere on campus. Now, it is important to listen to the students. Now, why is that? Well, my job, as previously stated, is to build the bridge from the administration to the students. And how am I supposed to do that well if I don't listen to your voices? Thank you.
Cinque?
Yeah, thank you. I think freedom of speech is there's responsibility that you need to have. When we talk about freedom of speech, people sometimes will say something offensive and then say that's my freedom. but there is always going to be an opposite reaction. So I would like to organize forums of some sort where people can recognize the humanity in one another. So groups that have two very differing of views, they can sit down and they can talk to each other about some sort of philosophy or something like that, so that they can see the humanity in the other person and they grow a deeper respect for the other person. And through growing this deeper respect for the other person, they, people won't abuse their freedom of speech.
Your rebuttal, John?
I'd like to go off of what Cinque just said. I think we need more areas and opportunities to engage in these. I think forums are an amazing idea, an idea that needs to at least be tried by whichever administration takes this presidency, an opportunity for students to discuss in a way that is both safe and beneficial for them. So Cinque, I want to tip my hat to you. That's an amazing suggestion and one that I fully support.
And Christian?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's essential, but like the others have mentioned, I think, yeah, there needs to be responsibility. Words are powerful, right? Words can be used to build someone up or to break someone down. And I've experienced that firsthand. I've experienced that in the Senate environment sometimes, right? It's an intense space, right? And words have meaning. Words have impact. And so what would it look like for us to realize, yes, we can say something. Legally, we're allowed to say something. But how powerful would it be if we can build relationship, generate a curiosity, want to know the stories of the people around us, and use words that are uplifting and encouraging? That is my commitment.
Alrighty. Another question for all candidates from the chat is, how are you going to make a commitment to student safety in regards to the pandemic? We'll start with Liz.
I am a huge believer in doing what is best for you and what is best for your body. Now, I am not going to tell you what to do as president. I am going to rather advise you to do what you think is best. Now, if that means you want to get the vaccine, then please get the vaccine. If that means you would like to wear a mask, then please please wear a mask. It simply is up to you. Thank you.
Alrighty, Cinque, the same question to you.
Thank you. Little of the COVID restrictions has much say from ASCSU. That's more from CDC, state, and local guidelines, and as well as the pandemic preparedness team. That we are already going along those guidelines, and we're going to keep going along with them. And one more thing I'd like to say, America is projected to hit herd immunity come July, so things are definitely there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
The same question to you, John.
This is a situation which moves fast. What I will say today will not be the correct answer by the time I'm in the presidency. Things are moving fast. That's why we want to be adaptable and take these challenges in a proactive manner. We want to establish that we do have the power to affect these guidelines. As students, we have the power. I don't want to say that we will just stand by and say whatever administration says. I want to be proactive and give suggestions and, at the very least, have guidelines for students to come back safely and to meet in person with their organizations. Because, like I said, and Cinque has mentioned before, you can't get those interactions via computer. You need that in-person aspect. And to give these students the opportunity and the pathway to do that is what's important.
Your rebuttal, Cinque?
I would just like to really clarify to everybody listening that ASCSU does not have the power to open up or close down any sort of campus events. We really have to go along CDC, local, as well as CSU's guidelines for COVID.
And Christian, your response to the question?
Yeah, well, I think, leaning on the scientists, the community experts, CSU is a pace setter in that regard, right? I'm thinking about our saliva testing, our wastewater testing. Those things are far ahead of other universities. And so I would first say celebrating the heroes at CSU who are making this possible, who are making our successful response possible. I also think it's important to recognize that we as leaders represent the things that we fight for, right? So if it means wearing a mask, it means you are communicating that message to other people. If you choose to get the vaccine, I know equity needs to be first and foremost, right? I know there are many communities on campus, specifically marginalized communities, that have had poor experiences with vaccines in the past. So how can we build trust and how can we build that engagement? And I think it starts with dialogue, curiosity, and a willingness to listen to the concerns, the questions, the comments of the student body.
Alrighty, moving on to a couple more candidate-specific questions. Starting off with Liz, can you elaborate on what you mean when a part of your campaign is asking for the administration to listen?
So the administration has access to billions of dollars that the students cannot see and cannot really even comprehend where that's going. And not only that, currently we are paying 100% of the fee for college for maybe, if best, 50% of the experience. That, in my opinion, is robbery, and I'm here to change that. You are paying for the college experience. You're paying for those opportunities, and you deserve that, and I'm going to give that back to you. Thank you.
Your rebuttal.
How are you going to make the administration, how are you going to communicate with the administration, though?
The job of the president and the vice president, I will reiterate myself for Cinque, is to be the bridge between the students and the administration. Given the fact that I would be president, I would be able to communicate that with them. Thank you.
Christian, you had a rebuttal?
Yeah, I think there's two elements here. I think, first of all, we need to hold our university accountable for its investment portfolio. I don't know if you all know this, but we're invested in a lot of places, obviously, I mean, billions and billions of dollars. We need to explore that. We need to have transparency on that first and foremost. But also, when I'm thinking about the administration, I think folks like President McConnell, Vice President Hughes, they move when they hear stories. Right? I could tell you that 30% of our campus is food insecure, or I could tell you the story of a specific student who doesn't know where their next meal is coming from because they're paying $30,000 to be here. Like giving you a car but no gas, we need to change the conversation a bit, and I think it starts with storytelling, and that's how you get folks like them to move.
Alrighty. Another candidate-specific question for Christian this time is, you believe that you know intimately the main issues in ASCSU. How do you plan to fix them in your administration?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think starting with transparency, right? We think transparency is honesty, right? We think it's clarifying when an opportunity is possible, when it's not possible. It means open agendas, open meetings, open mindsets, open frameworks. Like everything about the organization needs to be directed towards the students so that you can see what's happening in the organization. I think that's first and foremost, that needs to take place. I think also just fostering a conversation around if we could create an experience for students, if we could bring their ideas to life, what would that look like? So right now the organization is more focused inward, right? It's deliberation, discussion, and we decide on how we're going to spend our funds. What if we were to open that up, liberate that, and give that to the people to decide on projects, right? And ideas and solutions for $200, $300, $400, where we can start to bring to life all of these micro ideas all across campus that lead to a macro change.
Alrighty. A question for Cinque is, you pride yourself in your relationship with the administration. Why did you focus a lot of your campaign with the administration?
Why did I focus a lot of my campaign with the administration? How did I focus my campaign with the administration?
Well, a main part of your campaign is that you have a build relationship with the administration that other candidates don't have. So why did you focus on that?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't compare myself, but as Lys was saying, one of the main roles is to lobby on behalf of students to the administration. We know each other, and we can rely on our friendship to get something done for the greater good of the student body population, as well as the faculty and staff. So it's really about our friendship.
You have a rebuttal?
I'm going to go along with that and say that the other 97% of your student fees are really controlled by the Board of Governors. They have the final say on where that money goes. There are 9 of them that have voting memberships. Each one of them is appointed by the Governor of Colorado. If you are an out-of-state student or an international student, undocumented student, or a student who cannot vote yet, you have no representation in the Board of Governors besides the elected student body president, who does not have a voting membership. So what my campaign wants to focus on in terms of talking to administration, sorry, I'm out of time.
You had a rebuttal?
Yeah, just a question for Cinque. I'm curious if you all have a stance on the Hughes open space project.
Hughes open space project? Nope. That's a city issue, that's not us.
Oh, well, it's actually not. So it's the CSU system that is planning that project. CSU owns the former Hughes Stadium land. Maybe I just want to open this, right? We need to, regardless of where you stand on the topic, right? There are a lot of conversation points, right? Keep it as an environmental space, affordable housing, right? But I think the question is, when it comes for you, Cinque, when it comes to administration feeling adamantly about something, what will be your commitments to challenge that, to push back, to fight for student voice, even though you may feel beholden to the administration, which you've mentioned throughout your campaign?
My bad. I thought it was something else. Well, I'm a student first, first of all. I need to educate myself on this one, what's happening. I really need to find out who's it's impacting and who are the stakeholders, what are people gaining and what are people losing from this, and then we can make an honest assessment on what to say and what to do regarding this issue.
Alrighty. And then a question for John is going to be, being from Hawaii, which is a very culturally diverse place, how might this have given you a greater perspective on the needs of underrepresented communities at CSU?
Definitely. So coming from Hawaii, being an out-of-state student, there's a aspect of unfamiliarity with everything I do here at CSU. However, that's not something that's going to stop me. If anything, it's going to make me more curious about things. Having everything new is awesome. The first time I saw a squirrel was wild. I know that sounds weird, but it was. And it gave me a passion to explore things, to find out new perspectives, new answers, because every single thing that you do that's new to you is something you'll remember. So coming from arguably the most culturally diverse background of any state, I've seen perspectives of every single side, from we don't want to be a state to we're the best state. It really depends on if you can listen to people and build those connections and understand where people are coming from, so you can have those debates, those conversations with people, so you can move forward with your understanding instead of just shooting someone's idea down. And that's really what I learned a lot from in Hawaii, is everyone has a different opinion, yet everyone's opinion should at least be heard. Thank you for the question.
Another reminder that you can submit questions on our live chat. Just make sure that you indicate which candidate or candidates those questions are directed to. And then our final question before we move to intermission for all candidates is going to be, why are you qualified to be a leader? And we'll start with Liz.
Well, for one, I am truly a natural-born leader. It is a quality that my father has instilled in me since I was a very, very young girl. I am so passionate about what I do, and I'm very passionate about CSU because CSU, frankly, has so much to offer. And to be able to have the opportunity to lead the students and to represent their voice on campus would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Alrighty, the same question to you, John.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any one quality that distinguishes a leader. I think if there were to be one, it would be the ability to listen. No one has all the answers, yet if you have everyone, you have all the answers. If you're willing to listen to people, gain their perspectives, and truly, truly engage with them, you can have an insight that you would never get on your own. So what would qualify me is I'm willing to listen to people, no matter what your story is. I'm willing to engage with you. And another thing with leadership is it's something that you will continually grow in. You're never going to be a perfect leader, and understanding that will help you grow into being a more perfect leader. Thank you.
Alrighty, Christian.
Yeah, I think just looking back at the history of the leadership roles I've been able to carry, serving obviously right now as Speaker of the Senate, going back into high school, serving as student body president at Fort Collins High School, right, leading a group of 2,000 students, right, inspiring this vision of love and respect and dignity. I started a custodian service initiative there. That ended up getting the attention of Ashoka, which is an international group based in 90 countries that selects Ashoka young change makers, now selected for the United States out of a cohort of about 12 individuals. And it's experiences like that. I was selected in 2018 by Fort Collins. They choose one teenager each year to be the Human Relations Award recipient, and I received that alongside Brittany Otter from the Student Disability Center, who got it for the professional category. It's experiences like that that I realized that I have only gotten here because of the people around me and my commitment and curiosity to hear the stories of the people around me. It's not just about me, it's about you.
Alrighty, Cinque.
One of my mottos is passion to action, meaning when you have a desire to do something, act on it. I think a lot of people actually have a lot of leadership qualities, but they never act on what they're passionate about. Lydia and I are very passionate about everything, and everything that we speak about, and we want to act on behalf of that.
All right, thank you. We'll now be moving to intermission. Intermission is going to be about 5 minutes, but a reminder that you can still submit those questions in the live chat, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.
It's finally that time of year, Rams. The ASCSU spring election for your student government is here. ASCSU is responsible for funding so many important programs, such as Ramride, student organizations, Transport, the Rec Center, Rams Against Hunger, and so much more.
Candidates for President and Vice President, Speaker of the Senate, and Senators have started campaigning on the plaza, so get out and engage with your student body government. This is the time and opportunity to make your voice heard, so get out and vote. Keep an eye out for QR codes around campus for easy and quick access to voting information. Students will be able to vote for candidates on March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st for the 2021 ASCSU elections.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
Welcome back. My name is Ren Wadsworth, and again, I'm your moderator for this year's 2021-2022 presidential debate for the Associated Students of Colorado State University. Just a reminder, you can submit questions in the live chat. Just make sure you direct your questions to the candidate or candidates you wish to ask the question to. We're going to start off the debate with another question for all candidates, and that's going to be, coming out of a global pandemic, how do you plan to increase student involvement next year? And we'll start with John.
Definitely. So I want to avoid the simple saying, like, be more involved. What our platform is about, and what I've said before, is our platform is about getting students the opportunity to be involved and the actual way to be involved. Because, like I said, there's an opportunity cost for literally everything. If you have to take off work to go to your club meeting, that's going to cost you. If you have to pay for these things, that's going to cost you. So giving students the opportunity and the option to do those things, I believe, at the very least, will increase student engagement with the people who have not yet had the opportunity to be engaged. So that's my answer to that, and thank you for the question.
Christian, the same question to you.
Yeah, well, actually, I'd like to start with a story. Some of my friends and I, obviously you all saw the snowstorm that hit Fort Collins. Some of my friends and I went out with an axe and a saw, and we were just cleaning up some of the larger branches for families in our community. And we realized that, paralleling to the global pandemic, the storm is still in session, but it'll clear eventually. And when it does, we're going to have a lot of work to do on the mental health side of things. Right? Students are hurting. I know you all are hurting. At least I've been in that position throughout the pandemic. What can we do to re-up our commitment to mental health, to recover, to restore? It's more than just involvement. Is, are you doing okay? And what can we do to enhance your well-being and your experience? I think that's priority, and then involvement should come after.
Your rebuttal, Liz?
I would like to point out that my opponent did not answer the question on involvement. If you could please answer the question.
Right. Well, I was clarifying that involvement, I think, is the second step. I think first is making sure that people are engaged and feeling that their well-being is taken care of, right? Because if you can't bring your entire self into the room, if you don't feel stable mentally, or if you just don't feel like you're supported, it's harder to engage, right? If you don't know where your next meal is coming from, it's harder to engage. The financial impacts that this pandemic has had, we have to start there because that's the root of it all. And then from that will flourish a general interest and a desire to become involved, right? And I know it starts with well-being, and that's why I emphasize that.
Your response to the question, Liz?
So our plan is to open up safely and quickly. It's time to bring back football. It's time to bring back the things that make CSU worth attending. One of the things that I am really excited about doing is I pledge to give back to my community. And how am I going to do that? Well, I want to invite nonprofits onto campus. My dream of involvement is to bring the community into CSU and put CSU students back out into the community. I apologize, I have a bit of a stutter. So that we can benefit each other. And I would love to set up long tables in the plaza where students can come and be involved and donate their time for just 5 to 10 hours a month and work with these nonprofits. Thank you.
And Cinque.
Yeah, a few ideas we have for involvement is something like movie night at Canvas Stadium, something that's open to the community, like $2-3 for every single individual. You can stretch out on the lawn, you can sit in the bleachers and watch a nice movie. Something else we'd like to do is something like FSL Olympics, an Olympics event for FSL. And then the third thing, which we were trying to do pre-pandemic, was Cultural Week. I tried to do a cultural night, but Cultural Week is every day a different culture at CSU gets to represent and express themselves in the LSC and the theater. And on the final day, it would be a capstone of all the cultures, and it gives everybody the opportunity to learn from this culture, as well as marginalized cultures or just cultures, to express themselves and give others the opportunity to learn from them.
Your rebuttal, Christian?
Yeah, and just an invitation for everyone up here. I think it's also important that we recognize that we maintain a virtual component to things that we're doing, not as the primary, but as an option, right? And I think same with hybrid classes. I've talked to a lot of folks in the disabled community who really appreciate the hybrid option, and it's better for them overall in their experience. And I also have talked to people who are immunocompromised or have family members who are. So I would say, as we move forward, let's just keep that like in the backdrop, right, of having that always be an opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, my response to that is that's a great response. We would like to do like live streaming then for all these things, give people the equal opportunity to watch the movie at that low cost that others get the people to watch the Cultural Week via computer at home, something like that.
Alrighty. Another question for all candidates is going to be, what do you plan to do with student fee surpluses? Liz?
I want to put it right back into your pocket. I've said this many times before, and it's truly because I mean it. Saving money as a college student is incredibly important. I cannot say that enough. So by putting those surpluses of dollars back into your pocket via Uber and Lyft credits or even Ram Cash would only do great things. By giving you those opportunities, we could help recover from this COVID year by having people come back onto campus and start being more involved, being that they would have more money to work with. Thank you.
John?
So, from my understanding, there's an annual rollover around $400,000 each year between administrations. Now, it's important to have that security blanket, for lack of a better term, to ensure that if something happens like another pandemic, which we lose a bunch of enrollment, that we can continue to offer the services at the very least to the students who can still be here. However, if you're paying for a student fee that you're never going to use because you're going to graduate before it's used, it's really kind of difficult for you to do that. So we want to establish a minimum that you can keep and continue to roll over. Like Lys said, giving back to students should be the priority with that money, not just keeping it in our pockets where it's going to lose value and depreciate. We want to do something with that money, whether it's giving it back to you or put it into the scholarship fund. Thank you.
Christian?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to recognize, first of all, with student fees, there are a lot of stipulations on how they can be utilized, right? So it has to be invoiced. It has to be an existing program. So looking at some of the basic needs, commitments that Mary and I have, I'm thinking of food insecurity, mental health, things like that. It has to be an invoice for whatever fund or program. So we couldn't necessarily just give out cash to the students. So I would encourage folks to be wary if that is a promise, although I haven't heard that yet. One thing I'd like to share is, like, imagine that, to describe a situation, if your basement was flooding, and you have two approaches here, right? You can get the ShamWow out and you can start to clean it up, or you can tape the pipe that is flowing water into the room. And that's the idea, right? If we have excess funds, I think it's as simple as tape the pipe up a little bit more and slow down the river of student fee dollars if we can't actively utilize those in a way that's impacting students.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on the amount of student fees, we'd let a lot of it roll over, or if we have enough time of the next before the next term, we would like to make another investment with the community or the infrastructure on campus.
Alrighty. Moving to a couple candidate-specific questions. Christian Dykson, how do you think your experience as speaker may aid or affect your judgment as president?
Well, I think on the former there, I think it would only aid, right? It would only help Mary and I. With us together, we have over 5 years of experience in the organization. And it's important to recognize that does not mean that we want to continue in the ways the organization has gone, right? Some of the toxicity that even senators have mentioned that is within the space. What would it look like for us to use that experience to leverage a new vision? Right, a vision of love and respect and dignity where every person on this campus, even if they don't know what ASCSU is, they feel like their ideas and their solutions can be brought to life. And that only happens with someone who knows the internal workings in a way that can, in other words, if we're going to swing the gates open, we have to know what the lock combination is. Mary and I know what the lock combination is, and we want to swing the gates open so you can be supported and you can feel engaged in that way.
A rebuttal for Christian Dykson. With all due respect, you have been in ASCSU for eons. You are practically a dinosaur, yet it seems you have not achieved much. Why is this?
Not achieved much. So 2 years, not eons. 2 years in ASCSU. I was the University Affairs Chair and currently Speaker of the Senate. Some of the things that we've been fighting for is increasing transparency. Right? There have been promise after promise after promise for the Speaker to live stream sessions, to record, to archive, to make our website and our documents digitally accessible, adding closed captioning. All of those things emphasize our commitment. Rams Against Hunger, we just spent $60,000 on helping them build their new facility, which just got approved by the University Facility Fee Advisory Board. That's what we're working on. I'm happy to go in depth on our impacts.
Alrighty. A question for Cinque. How has your experience as the current intern for Joyce McConnell, the president of CSU, and former intern for Dr. Blanche Hughes prepared you for this role?
Yeah, I'm the intern for the president's office. It's prepared me for this role because I've really seen how the inner workings are with the university. As much as Christian has with Senate and things like that, I've really seen how it is within the administrative building, within the Oval, seeing how different office dynamics there are, seeing stuff like that. It's really prepared me in how to communicate to someone. It's really prepared me for understanding what a healthy compromise is and understanding that you're not just going to walk into anywhere and tell them what they're going to do. You need to come have a general understanding. You need to come to a general understanding between both parties before we can actually get something done. And that's what they've really taught me. They're extremely wise individuals, and they've lived through a lot. And I've just learned from them immensely, and they've taught me willingly.
Alrighty. A question for Liz. How might your prior experience in ASCSU as an intern for former Speaker of the Senate Blake Alfred and running for Speaker of the Senate prepare you for the duties of being ASCSU president?
Well, it's given me insight on multiple perspectives, and I think that's incredibly important because not only am I a student, but I have touched in on that experience of ASCSU and what it's like. And frankly, I wasn't pleased by it, and that's why I'm running, because I think that there genuinely is an opportunity to make a positive difference, to make sure that we can go out into our community and do things for good. Thank you.
I think I missed one of your rebuttals, John, so if you wanted to.
Yeah, so I had a rebuttal against what Christian had said. So he mentioned in multiple statements that he may have over 5 years of experience in ASCSU. He also mentioned earlier in the debate that he knows what the problems are in ASCSU and has had 2 years to go about fixing them. Yet I'd argue that ASCSU's environment has become more and more toxic every single year since. And I wouldn't agree with him. He's done things, but the most important part of his campaign is relationships. Yet the relationships between Senate and executive has been faltering.
So I'd love to just be honest about the fact that when you have a space of 50, 60 people in my branch that are all opinionated and very passionate, there's going to be alternate opinions on things, right? If you have a budget of $1.3 million, there are going to be disputes about how it's spent. We should expect it, right? But we should also invite an alternative, and that's something that I've tried to share in every conversation that I've had. My leadership team knows this, right? Sometimes it's me not being active enough in addressing the other branches when I just want to assume the best, right? That's maybe a weakness that I have, is assuming the best in others, and I want to continue that, right? I want to continue to fight for that, and I think we need to improve the organization. I absolutely agree.
A question directly for John. From the chat is, how will you be on the plaza every week when student organizations have a limited number of tabling slots?
That's very simple. This goes into what I can do personally. The plaza is supposed to be a place for free speech, and no one can stop from being on the plaza. If I'm out there on my own accord, meeting students and listening to their issues, as every president should, there isn't an issue with that. I understand as representative of an organization, ASCSU, that my facilities of ASCSU will be limited to 8 times. However, I'd also like to argue that I've never really seen the plaza filled every single day. And whether this is an outdated policy, that's up to the administration to decide. And I think it should be decided on, because if we can have people out there engaged, then that should be what's happening. We shouldn't be relegating people who want to be out there, engaging with students. If we're going to say we're about student engagement, why are we limiting ourselves? We should be actively protesting that in order so we can be more engaged with students, not hide away and just run from the challenge of it. Thank you.
Alrighty. So it looks like we are going to take another 5-minute intermission really quickly, but we will be back in 5 minutes.
It's finally that time of year, Rams. The ASCSU spring election for your student government is here. ASCSU is responsible for funding so many important programs, such as Ramride, student organizations, Transport, the Rec Center, Rams Against Hunger, and so much more.
Candidates for president and vice president, speaker of the Senate, and senators have started campaigning on the plaza, so get out and engage with your student body government. This is the time and opportunity to make your voice heard, so get out and vote. Keep an eye out for QR codes around campus for easy and quick access to voting information. Students will be able to vote for candidates on March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st for the 2021 ASCSU elections.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
The public safety alerts that we are getting, and if conditions arise, we will end the stream abruptly. But to continue the debate, we are going to ask a candidate-specific question from the chat for Cinque, which is, today CSU students reported that comments were deleted and deemed irrelevant under the Cinque Lydia 21 Instagram account. How can you expect students, or how can students expect transparency when questions they ask are brushed off?
Yeah, the comments were irrelevant for what the post was, and it was kind of, it was unnecessary for the person who was speaking. We had a video of Adrian Peterson talking about Lydia because Lydia knows him on a personal level, and people started speaking as if they knew him on the comment section. And the comment section is not a space for that. We're not here to be giving anybody to use our platform to disrespect others in such a way.
Alrighty. On a similar note to Liz, recently a member of a marginalized community on campus called you out on social media, and your response was one which attempted to silence them by removing the post. If this is your response before assuming office, how do you plan to appropriately hear out and address concerns from the CSU student body that you're running to represent?
Thank you. So, inclusion should never be a battleground. We genuinely thought the captions were auto-generated like they are on YouTube, and it was a learning curve for us. We are only human and we are not perfect. That being said, how does that mistake warrant the malicious, consistent attack, which was clearly a smear campaign on behalf of my opponents, Christian and Mary? Tess openly admitted to working on this campaign and blatantly admitted to targeting us and singling us out when she had not been monitoring all campaigns, captioning, and accessibility. We genuinely pride ourselves on being transparent and would like to give you, the viewers, an opportunity to judge this for yourselves. Jade, if you would like to release those documents now, that would be lovely. Go check our story at Taddei_Schroeder2021.com. We would like to give you the opportunity to judge it for yourselves. Thank you.
Christian?
That got intense there. I think I should mention first. So the individual is not a part of the team directly and did not attack on behalf of our campaign. What that was communicating her lived experience and the frustrations that she has with, like, going back to the idea of if you don't have accessibility in place, it's the difference between being able to access an experience or not, being able to access a memory or not. And so I can understand that 18, 19 years of lived experience and frustration and inaccessibility came to a boiling point. I get that. And that's why I invited all of us, right? Let's be accessible. Let's have image descriptions. Let's have closed captioning. That's something we should all commit to.
Alrighty. A question for Christian now from the chat. If you win, how will you ensure that the current groupthink mentality of the Senate you currently lead does not become a part of your executive branch?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the question. I think we need a marketplace of ideas. We need diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, diversity of perspective. I'm thinking about John F. Kennedy, right, in the Cuban Missile Crisis. The people that were surrounding John F. Kennedy in that room all thought the same way. And that's why it was such a disaster. And that's why we need to look at ASCSU and take stock of this and say, is every voice represented in the room? And if not, we need to build a bigger table. Right, that's one thing that came up when we interviewed City Manager Darren Atterbury. He talked about this, that the idea of building a bigger table recognizes that there are voices that need to be at the table that aren't there, and we should challenge, right, constructively. We should question. We should do those things because that helps advance us, right? Just like this debate. This is advancing us as a university and clarifying what's possible. I'm committed to all of those ideals.
Rebuttal from John.
I'd like to go back to in connection to this, what Cinque said about forums. I think forums are an amazing idea to combat this issue. It gives students a safe place to talk about their ideas in a way that they're all going to be constructively heard. And it avoids the idea of a groupthink when you're going in there saying what you want to think, not what others want to hear you say. So once again, I'd urge every single candidate here to look into the ideas of a forum, because that is probably one of the best ideas I've heard tonight. So that's my rebuttal, and I think it should be noted that everyone should potentially do that.
Rebuttal from Liz.
Through your radical inclusion platform, including that all perspectives be heard, especially the ones that ASCSU does not traditionally agree with, will these people share a seat at your table?
I would refrain from the term "these people." That seems like a group generalization. I would say the people, the voices, the students should have a right to be at the table and to have their voice and their experience told. And I think one thing I was going to mention about my role in Speaker of the Senate, one thing in Robert's Rules of Order clarifies that you have to have an affirmative, negative, or somewhere in the middle anytime you're debating a subject. And my senators will tell you this. I have stayed true to that virtue and to that value of always having the affirmative, the negative, the affirmative, the negative. Sometimes it's the same person speaking over and over and over again on one side, but it helps establish that marketplace of ideas. That's just one of many commitments I'm going to continue in this new role.
Another question from the chat for Liz is, you said that your campaign is committed to bringing students back on campus, but you also say that masks are optional. How are you planning to protect students?
Well, As previously stated, I believe that students have the right to choose. Now, I will go back on saying that CSU is a federally funded campus. That means you reserve your right to freedom of speech in the form of protest. Now, if you don't agree with the mask mandate, then protest that. I encourage you to protest anything that you don't agree with. Now, I also do encourage people to do what they feel is safe for their community, because it is about caring for others. Now, I personally sometimes, when I am outside, choose to not wear a mask. A, because it makes me feel claustrophobic. B, because I am not around my family, and I am not around anybody that I put at risk. So that being said, I make that decision for myself, and I encourage you to do so as well. Thank you.
You had a rebuttal, Cinque?
Yeah, Liz, how are you going to open up campus when it's not a power within ASCSU president?
You said it perfectly yourself. The United States is set to get herd immunity in July. We have seen states just get rid of the mask mandate entirely, and it's definitely starting to get looser. So with this track in place, we will be open for fall 2021 if the powers that be let it happen. Thank you.
Your rebuttal.
I'd like to say something. I don't ever want to see a president candidate set a glass ceiling that can't be broken. At one point, the president or ASCSU didn't have the power to bring beer on campus, yet there's a Ramskeller in the Lower Student Center because of the students and their actions. We are going to be told as presidents that we cannot do something that is for the benefit of the students. It is our responsibility to challenge that and to ensure that we do have the power, because we are the students, for the students, by the students. We have the power to make these changes. We just have to have the commitment to do that. That is what I'd like to say.
You had a rebuttal, Cinque?
Yeah, I would just like to clarify, you are not going to be opening up the campus, correct? You're just going to be abiding by county guidelines. So it goes into a larger question. Why is opening up the campus within one of your platforms when it's going to be going by abiding with county and city guidelines?
Cinque, it's in your platform as well. We all want to return to normal, and we can do so by working together. Once again, make that decision for yourself. Get the vaccine if you would like to. By taking these steps, we are going to move forward, and hopefully, if the powers that be, we will be open in fall 2021, given the trends. Thank you.
Cinque?
Our platform says that we're going to throw events. It does not have anything to do with doing something that's out of our control. I just like to say that.
It implies opening up the campus.
Say again?
You have to open up the campus to throw football games and to throw a movie night. As great as those ideas are, do not get me wrong, I think they're fantastic, but the campus does have to be open to achieve those things.
The one last thing.
We're going to move on
Okay.
from that question. Thank you. A question from the chat directly for Christian is, how can you and Mary take credit for the Rams Against Hunger project when you did not work on the project?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that question. And first of all, I want to give credit, yes, to the people who have been behind that project, right? Gemma Boyenko, Benton Rossler, Aaron Freeman, Gabby Brown. You all know the work that you're doing. Michael Buttram, right? And I celebrate, when I was making that comment, what I was saying is us as an organization, we were able to stand behind that. And thank you, right? And I'm just proud that I could be a part of an organization that can fight for that. And I think for Mary and I, right, it's this curiosity of the wisdom that someone like Michael Buttram has, right, who's currently the director for food insecurity, hearing his story, hearing his perspective. His interview that we did with Michael Buttram is going to drop this weekend, early next week, telling the story of the needs of the program, the origins of the program. It's things like that where we want to have that curiosity. But yes, I do want to be mindful of the folks who started that, and I'm just proud that you all have done that. That was the only thing I was trying to communicate.
John?
I'd like to go off that point. We can't take credit for anything that happens at CSU because as leaders, all we do is lead. The action comes from the students. Like Christian had said, it is not just them that makes these things happen. It's the students and the student organizations that make sure that these changes are enacted. Because all we are doing are being the voice for the students and helping to lead the students in the direction that the students need to go. And really, if we want to make a change, we need the students and we need your engagement with us. That's what I'd like to say about that. Thank you.
All right, just a reminder that you can submit questions in the live chat, and that live chat is going to be moderated by members of the election committee. Moving on to another general question for all of the candidates. Some students on campus still don't know what ASCSU is and what its function is. So how do you plan to make the work done in ASCSU more renowned and transparent to the general student body? Let's start with John.
So that's an amazing question. And it really starts with making sure that we have a presence outside of the ASCSU offices. And that really requires the motivation and determination of the people elected in these positions, the students representing the students, to go out and meet with the students. Christian said it perfectly. Our office shouldn't separate us from the students, it should bring us closer. That is what ASCSU is about. It is for the students, by the students. That is in the Constitution. We have to make sure that is understood by all. You have a place in ASCSU. As a student, you have a place in ASCSU. And we need to make sure that you understand that we are here to support you, listen to you, not just shoot you down and chastise you for what you said, or maybe you said it in the wrong way. We're here to listen to you no matter how you say it or what you have to say.
Please.
All right, so I love this question because me and my team really are so creative when finding solutions. So one thing that we would love to do is just listen to you and have you come to us with things that you want us to do. For example, like the board game idea, just getting like giant dominoes or like a giant Yahtzee or a chess game, all with like ASCSU logos on it. We could play that on just on the plaza, and that's a super easy way to reach out to so many students. Thank you.
Christian?
Yeah, I got the chance to go live on CSU's Instagram and launched a poll with that exact question. Do you know what ASCSU is? And 40% of the campus, 40% of that poll said yes, which is concerning, right? I mean, if only 40% of the campus knows what ASCSU stands for, and if they don't even know that we have $1.3 million, how can they inform us on the places that those dollars need to go, right? And it's often the students on our campus that are most in need of resources that often aren't connected with them or don't know about them. It's often the students with the best ideas and solutions that aren't in the circle of ASCSU or don't know about ASCSU. I want to change that, and we have to prove the concept, right? If we open it as a grant-giving organization, we have to prove the concept, which means things like Ramride, like ASCSU. Let's continue projects like that, and let's bring your ideas to life.
Cinque?
Yeah, I think the best way on educating what ASCSU does and is would be definitely having a focus at Ram Welcome, speaking to first years about what we are doing and how we plan to get things out, and then inviting people to get involved, such as like internships or anything like that. And I think just is giving an incentive for people to learn about it, is letting the opportunities be known of what the opportunities that are within ASCSU, such as like connections, stipends, anything like that.
John, your rebuttal?
I'd like to say to all the candidates who've spoken so far that they've all touched on it briefly. Outreach is the most important part about what our jobs should be, making sure students don't have to come to us to voice their concerns. If anything, we should be going to them at every single step of the way. Whether it's going to a club meeting, speaking at a student event, or just being on the plaza, making sure we have a presence so students understand that we are there for them is the most important part of this job. Thank you.
A couple more candidate-specific questions, starting with Liz. We touched on it briefly about how your campaign is very vocal about putting money back into the pockets of students, but how do you plan to reform student fees and achieve this goal?
We're going to break down the numbers in the most basic way possible so that you can see it and you can vote on it, because as John has touched on, ASCSU is by the students, for the students. So by making sure that those numbers are accessible to you, we can decide what to do with those funds. Thank you.
A question for John from the chat. What will you do considering campus sustainability, and what are your views on it?
Definitely. So the biggest part of sustainability is making sure that you are not wasteful. Waste is the biggest issue here at CSU. Lys touched on it, Christian touched on it, Cinque touched on it. There is an exorbitant amount of waste. And efficiency should be the priority of sustainability. If you're going to go about something and saying, we're gonna conserve this and this and this and not use it, you're defeating the purpose of having it. Using something efficiently should always be the priority of sustainability. If you're using more than you actually need, that's not sustainable. If you're using less than you need, that's not economical. What you need to do is find the balance. And you need to listen to the people who this is affecting, whether that is coming from the dining hall's waste, or it's coming from the LSC's waste, or just the power expenditure used by turning the lights on in the stadium overnight. However, there are some places where those lights need to be turned on, like walkways where students need to feel safe at night. So it really comes down to making sure you find the most efficient way to use things.
Your rebuttal, Cinque?
Yeah, just as Christian said, we would like to invite all the candidates, regardless of who wins, to have more of an effort of reversing the effects of climate change. This is going to be the fight of our generation, and we need to find out every single way that we can reverse climate change and work to do that. We need to start thinking bigger and better because we have the resources and we have the capabilities of achieving such possibilities.
A direct question for Christian. One of your campaign's central tenets is racial inclusion and transparency. What does this mean to you, and how do you plan to address this?
Right, yeah. So I think, so radical inclusion is the banner, right? Racial inclusion is absolutely a part of that, as well as inclusion of thought, perspective, experience, whatever your background is, we want you at the table. We want your voice. When I think about transparency, I think the intersection between the two is this idea of only through transparency can we have all voices be heard. Right? In other words, if we look at ASCSU, if we look at the network of $63 million, each of those pockets, they're wells of influence, right? Wells of influence that we don't want to just tokenize voices. We want to put those voices in the places of power, right? And that is the one difference between, with Mary and I, is we realize we want to tear down the power structure and we want to be able to open those doorways so that you can have a vote, you can have a voice on these issues that are so important.
Your rebuttal, Cinque?
It's not much of a rebuttal, but more of a general issue that we have is that a lot of resources are out there for ASCSU to be known about, but people don't have the drive to access them. So it's hard to put that kind of burden on all of the nominees up here because a lot of it has to do with self-efficacy to learn about such an organization.
Your rebuttal, Dykson?
Right. Well, and I would just add, I think with the boards and commissions on campus, there are resources, right? I'm thinking about the University Facility Fee Advisory Board that is $1.6 million, approximately. I'm not entirely sure on that. 1.6 roughly, 63 for student fees as a whole. It's things like that. If we can start to actively recruit and generate an interest, right? If you have a solution and an idea, I guarantee you there's a board or a commission specifically for that. And that is something that ASCSU has the knowledge and wherewithal to communicate. We just have to take the step to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if ASCSU could act as such as a bridging organization, as like a connecting. So someone comes to us and asks a question of they have a general concern or they want to get involved in a certain opportunity, ASCSU should be that gateway for that person to get involved in such a thing. That's all I gotta say.
Alrighty, a question for you specifically as you plan on creating a Colorado Collegiate Association in order to connect with other university student body governments in Colorado. And what are some of the challenges and benefits you foresee that come with this pursuit?
So the great thing about that, we want to unionize all of the colleges within Colorado. It's already created, and it dies out every few years because people don't have the drive to keep going on with it. Some of the challenges is getting buy-in from people, and some of the advantages of such an association would be comparing and contrasting what we're doing and what others are doing so that we can see the proper model on how to go about something, because there's some things that we're doing terribly in and there's some things that we're doing great in, and other organizations have the exact opposite. So this is a forum for us to learn and a forum for us to teach, as well as splitting costs for doing an intracollegiate event.
Your rebuttal?
Yeah, well, I think it just goes back to a principle that Mary and I hold is we don't need to reinvent the wheel, we just need to make it smoother, right? Like there are solutions and things that are already enacted. We don't necessarily need to revamp, although I'll give that, right? With the Colorado Student Government Coalition, I'm the only person up here that's an active member of the Colorado Student Government Coalition. Got to go to UCCS virtually and speak with their student government about the things that CSU is up to and our vision and our message and ways that they can amplify their impact. So like those opportunities are here, they're available. Angie Paccioni has spoken to the Colorado Student Government Coalition. We want to continue those relationships.
Alrighty. A question for all candidates is that many people in the chat asked, how do you plan to ensure that minority and specifically women's voices are heard in ASCSU when a large portion of the executive branch has historically been led by men? Liz?
I am so excited for this question, being that I am the only woman up here in this on this debate stage. So, women, it's our time to shine. Let's get out into our community. Let's lead by example. It is really, we have a perspective that most people don't, and it's a perspective that needs to be heard. So I genuinely encourage every single woman watching this to come out and to join ASCSU so we can have your voice heard. Thank you.
Sean?
What I'll say is representation, no matter how you feel about it, matters. It sets a precedent, and it sets an example for you to follow. If you don't see someone who you can relate with in a position you want to be in, it dissuades you from going towards that position. I'm here to say that you shouldn't be looking for someone who you relate with to be in a position that you want to be in. If anything, you should be the one to break that mold, to take that first step. And I'm here with you. I've never been president of anything before, but I want to be president of ASCSU because I know that I have some great ideas, and I have a great team around me who have some more great ideas, who we can help build each other up to ensure that every voice is heard. And it doesn't just stop with me, it should continue going. I'm only going to be your president for 1 year. ASCSU will be around as long as CSU is around. Thank you.
Christian?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with recognizing, like Mary and I do, that we don't have all the solutions and we don't always know the problems, but we have the curiosity and the desire to ask better questions. And I mean, just one thing that comes to mind is like, let's create an environment where every person, every voice can be welcomed. And the framework there is participatory versus distributional service, right? Distributional means that we have all the answers, we have all the solutions, we'll just hand out this experience and we'll hand out all the resources that you want. Participatory says we literally cannot do it without you. We can't do it without your lived experience. And so it's not a question of desire, it's a question of necessity. Mary and I will only thrive if we open the doorways to voices of all backgrounds, identities, experiences. And that's something that we're going to live out when we're selecting our cabinet.
Cinque?
I'd like to clarify in that question that women are marginalized on campus, not minorities. The campus actually has more women than men, and it's quite a bit. And I think that the cabinet should reflect that proportion on campus.
Alrighty. A question to everyone from the chat is, what steps will you take to ensure that ASCSU is a safe environment for students of color, as it has been used, the student believes, to push forward white supremacist agendas? We'll start with Christian.
Yeah, well, I think one principle that Mary and I are standing on is recognizing that we can't sacrifice progress on the altar of tradition, right? So there's a lot of things that are traditional that we can't necessarily follow that always, right? Because progress is needed. And I distinctly remember that when I was a senator and some of the representatives from the Black African American Cultural Center, they mentioned that they felt like it was a hostile space. That's happened this year. I mean, the senators currently serving, they've mentioned that as well. And so it's asking the questions of how can we improve this environment, and I think it's pausing and listening more than we speak. It's assuming the best intentions in others. It's recognizing when we have lived experience, but also recognizing when we don't. And that's something that I've learned and grown in as a leader, and I hope to continue to do that.
John?
Definitely. The thing I will say to this is that CSU is one of the most diverse places you can imagine. You have people from almost every single country, every single state, and it's crazy to see that. Yet, not every single student feels connected. However, there are options for you. There are clubs you can join where you can find a community. And what we want to do is give every single student the opportunity to find those communities, to join those communities, to find camaraderie with people who will support you. ASCSU can't touch every single student's life, but every single student can join a club that can support them, who can help them through most difficult times, who can advocate for them when they need it. ASCSU isn't the only student organization that has a voice here, nor should it be. Those student organizations need those students, and those students need those organizations. Thank you.
Liz?
It really starts at outreach. It starts by encouraging people of all backgrounds and all experiences to come out and let their voices be heard. It is reaching out to those and communities and telling them, hey, this exists, this is here, come out, come be a part of it, and let's do something great together. Thank you.
Okay.
Obviously, I am a black man, and it's going to be safe for people, for me. It's going to be safe for people that look like me, and it's going to be safe for people that don't look like me. And that's going to be through accountability. If someone has done something that has impacted someone negatively with harmful intent, we are going to have a discussion about that, and we're going to have the appropriate action after that discussion.
Alrighty. Another question for everyone is, how does your campaign team reflect the values that you are standing by in your campaign? And can you say that they are people that are helping, oh, sorry. How does, I'll restart, my apologies. How does your campaign team reflect the values you are standing by? And can you say that they're people that are helping push for diversity, equity, and inclusion? Christian?
Yes. Yes, I can confidently say that every person that's on our team, Mary and I specifically selected our team based on that, right? Do they have the curiosity to know more? Do they have that commitment to radical inclusion, transparency, stewardship? Especially with radical inclusion, the question is, do they have the desire to be disruptive and to demand change, even if there are traditions that are deeply instilled? Yes, I see that in every single one of them. And I also see a love and compassion that Mary and I share, that we want every person of our vision to feel represented, right? For Mary and I, it's not about us, it's about the people around us. We want them to see their story and experience in our vision. But I would say, yeah, every person on our core campaign team and in our vision, in our movement, displays those values.
John?
Definitely. So that is an amazing question. I'll answer it this way. Every single person that I put on our campaign team is someone who I knew could challenge me, who felt comfortable enough to stand up to me when I said something wrong or said something that was hurtful. That is what I'm looking for in every single cabinet position. Not just someone who agrees with me. You don't have to agree with me to be on the cabinet, but you do have to have the efficacy to stand up and believe in what you believe in is right and voice that. Every single person on my cabinet or who will be on my cabinet will be able to talk to me personally without fear to say that, hey, this is really messed up. Why did you do that? And I'll be able to sit with them and say, yeah, you know what, you're right, let me listen to this. Furthermore, on the campaign team, we have a host of very talented individuals who all have different experiences. And they're from a wide range of backgrounds. Not just my friends, but people who may have challenged me prior. I reached out to them personally to ensure that they could have their voices heard. Thank you.
Liz?
So I am so blessed to have what I obviously think is the best campaign team ever. They are some of my best friends now, and their perspectives and their just what they do to give me a new perspective is beyond words. I am so incredibly grateful. Now, that being said, I also chose to surround myself with people who were kind and who could challenge those perspectives that I have, because frankly, I'm a little bit stubborn sometimes. So having that balance was so huge. So thank you.
And Cinque?
Yeah, could you restate the question, please?
Yes, of course. If I can find it. Sorry.
No issue.
Oh, yes, again. I'm so sorry, I got lost.
No problem.
Okay. How does your campaign team reflect the values that you are standing by in your campaign, and can you say that they are people that are helping push for diversity, equity, and inclusion?
So how does our campaign push for our values? Well, I believe that first come your values, and then comes your speech, and then comes your action. So everything we're doing is directly rooted in our values. So yes. And then how is it, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a very packed term, it's you can't say it in 1 minute, you know? We're definitely trying to grow in every way possible when it comes to marginalized voices. One thing I want to do is create a cabinet position specifically for student disabilities, because I see a great need for that, because there's a lot of things that I just have no idea about, because I do not have a disability.
You got a rebuttal, John?
Yeah, so Cinque, you earlier said that part of your campaign with engagement was relying on prior friendships. To me, this spells out one word: nepotism. how will you make sure that you're avoiding nepotism with your actions in your campaign team? Since you have on a debate stage say that you're relying on your friendships to be engaged with the people. That doesn't seem very diverse to me. You have a set group of friends, and you may not meet a lot of people on campus if you just stick to your friends.
Well, I'm always making friends, and I'm not going to ever stop making friends. And my friends have very trusted opinions. Call it what you want, but I'm going to learn from my friends until the day I die.
Alrighty. A question again for all candidates from the chat is, how can we trust you to recognize CSU's land acknowledgement within your branch? We'll start with Christian.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it starts with recognizing and starting with humility, right? Recognizing that the lands that we're on today were the lands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute nations and peoples, period. That's the history, that's the story. We need to recognize that before we do anything. And I mean, it starts with cabinet meetings, reading the land acknowledgement and pausing when we're reading it, right? I know there's a tendency to brush by it or to just play the video and disconnect. Let's lean in, let's have a curiosity, let's pursue the lived experience of the Indigenous folks on our campus in every way that we can. Let's fight for the protection of our lands, right? Of not necessarily our lands, I mean their lands, if we're being honest. Let's be environmental because it's a mandate for leaders of a land-grant institution. That should be our first and foremost priority.
Cinque?
So building off of Christian, which is, of course, I agree with, I think we should also have a focus of Indigenous students that are attending college right now. We pay the same student fees, and we are going to advocate for the same fight. We need to be making sure that the powwows are fully funded and things like that, working with NAC and things like ensuring that their time at CSU is enjoyable. And if there's anything that we can do to improve something that I am not experiencing, I want to work towards that.
John?
At the very best, what I see as land grant and the land acknowledgement, to me, it's just virtue signaling. It's saying something without any action to build off of it. And what Cinque had said is an actionable thing past that. Understanding that it is important to have the recognition that these lands belong to someone else prior. That's incredibly important. I'm a quarter Native Hawaiian. I don't have a lot of connection to any land back home because we don't exactly own it. So it's important to recognize it, but it is also important to have an actionable step. Otherwise, what you currently have is just virtue signaling and saying, yes, go, yay. There's nothing behind it currently, and that will need to change to ensure that it's not virtue signaling. It is an actionable thing. It is something we actually believe in.
Rebuttal, Christian?
Yeah, and I think as we're creating those solutions, it's not really something that us, who I know none of us are Indigenous, it's not something that we can project on the Indigenous community, right? It has to be a curiosity. I'll give that, absolutely, right? And we wrote up a statement for the Indigenous Peoples Day, formerly known as Columbus Day. We wrote up a statement and I sent it to the Native American Cultural Center, and I got a ton of responses. And the senator came into my office and gave me line by line advice on what needed to change in it. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have the curiosity to change it. And I realized that we can't do anything with,
Thank you.
Say anything about
Thank
them
you.
without them. That's the idea.
Cinque, your rebuttal.
Yeah, something commemorable about the two candidates sitting next to me is that they both want to listen and act. And I think all nominees up here want to listen and act about this issue because there are certain things that we cannot recognize because we've never experienced such a thing. So I like to say that I think we all would act on such a thing.
Your rebuttal, John.
Yeah, I'd like to contradict that. My grandmother wrote part of the Hawaiian dictionary and was completely fluent in the Hawaiian language. My father knows very little Hawaiian, or knew very little Hawaiian. And that was because of the effects of colonialism in Hawaii. There is a revival of the Hawaiian language, and to say that no one up here has had any experience with an Indigenous perspective is incredibly harming to me and my identity as Hawaiian. And quite frankly, I am very, very hurt by that. And I understand that I do not look Hawaiian, but...
Your rebuttal.
Yeah, I apologize. I was speaking on where the land is, like CSU's land grant institution. I apologize for that, John.
Your response, Liz?
Thank you. as the job of the president is truly to listen to the students and to represent them. Now, that being said, being that the students as a whole value and love the land grant acknowledgement, then that is absolutely wonderful, and that is a tradition that we will continue to do through the Taddei Schroeder administration. Thank you.
Alrighty. Another question from the chat is, how will you ensure the Senate culture of bullying people with different opinions does not follow you into your executive administration? We'll begin with Cinque.
The question is, how are we going to ensure that there's not bullying?
Yes, it's from a student.
Okay. Well, I'm not aware of the Senate culture because I'm not previously intertwined with them in any regard. But as I was saying before, there's going to be accountability and measures taken if any sort of harmful action is taken with harmful intent. And even if there is a harmful action without harmful intent, we need to have discussions about this and act upon that.
Alrighty, Christian?
Yeah, I think for Mary and I in our cabinet context, I think what that looks like is having a curiosity to know all of the perspectives in the room and not just assuming that everyone agrees, right? And that is one thing I even mentioned, like John F. Kennedy, right? Looking at his cabinet in the Cuban Missile Crisis. For Mary and I, we want to look at our cabinet and ask that question, where do you all stand on this? And invite them to disagree and to have that discussion rather than just assuming we're moving as one block. I think if the cabinet and the executive branch can exemplify that, it'll only mirror in the Senate. And I think if we can set that precedent and that expectation for the whole organization, I think we're all better off, right? We don't always agree on everything. We cannot limit an issue to a binary vote of yes or no. There's so much more behind it, and we always have to embrace that.
The most important thing about any relationship is setting clear and objective boundaries. So everyone knows if you do something, this will be the reaction. And holding every single person in any part of ASCSU accountable for their actions is important at the very least. That shouldn't just stop there at your actions, but your words that you say to people. If you're not including people in a debate in ASCSU where all students' voices are meant to be heard, that is unacceptable at the very least. And it pains me to say that I've experienced this as my time in the Senate as for Undeclared Leadership Council and APAC. People will bully you, but it is important to understand that they will have repercussions for that. And that is something that I will hold very dear to my campaign.
Liz?
In a business in the real world, the way to get things done is to have everybody on the same page. The mindset and goals throughout the cabinet should be the same. Understanding people on a personal level will help us achieve that goal. We are not always going to get along. However, there is an accountability aspect to having equal respect and dignity, and that is really the key to a successful office. And we can alleviate the toxicity in ASCSU by doing really simple solutions, like my VP had a super fun idea of creating a Minecraft server for people in ASCSU to go play on. Like, that is so fun, in my opinion. Just little things like that could really help. Thank you.
Alrighty, we are actually out of time, so we will be now moving to closing statements. Similarly to opening statements, you'll each have 1 minute to tell us why you think you should be the next president of the Associated Students of Colorado State University. We'll start with Liz.
First, I would like to thank you so much for tuning in and listening to all of our perspectives. I would like to end this by saying that we value you and we encourage you to reach out to us via DM or email or however you wish to do so, and let us know how we did on this debate, because we really do value you. Thank you.
John?
What I have in front of me right here is the ASCSU Constitution. Front page in the preamble, it states unequivocally, the mission of ASCSU is to ensure students have the right to fully participate in both its formal and informal activities. That is what our campaign is based upon. Not just telling you can engage, but giving you the way to be engaged on campus. Not telling you do something that you cannot do, but giving you the pathway to do it. That is what we're about. I'm not here to virtue signal. I believe I say this for everyone here. We want to see change, yet we want to be able to make that change, and we cannot do it without you. That is why I'm trying to give every single student here the opportunity to be engaged on campus rather than just telling you to be engaged. David and I both believe this very, very, very strongly. The college experience shouldn't just be in the classroom. It should be the holistic experience of college. The memories you make, the struggles you go through, the friendships you carry with you, and the things you do. Thank you.
Christian?
Yeah. Mary and I are asking for your vote because we realize that there are solutions, lived experience, ideas that you have that we may not know, but we need to know it. We need your story and we need your experience. And that's one thing I'll end with, is look at all of the candidates' pages. I would encourage it. And what I will tell you is our page is the only one that recognizes that we don't have all the power within ourselves, but we have a curiosity and a desire to build a coalition and to build change on this campus. That starts with seeking wisdom. That starts with seeking stories. That starts with telling your story. When you look on our page, you'll notice, it's the faces of other students. It's your faces. It's your stories, your experience. We just dropped our interview with Muma Ling today. Right? She's an indigenous woman of Myanmar. Hearing her experience has shaped me in a way that I can't even describe, and it's why I'm in public service, because I want to amplify those voices. I want to use this platform. I know Mary feels the same. We're asking for your vote because we need you. We need you to build this vision in order to actualize our values of radical inclusion, transparency, stewardship. It starts with you. So that's why we're asking for your vote.
And Cinque?
I really believe in Lydia's ability to be a vice president, and I believe in myself to do that as well, not to be a president. I would ask for your vote because we have the potential to rethink how student body government is. ASCSU is already one of the distinguished student body government organizations within the nation, and we can be a leader in several regards. And I say that without a doubt, such as our sustainability mission. I really hope that everybody just votes first off, and I hope they vote for us as well.
And that concludes the 2021-2022 presidential debate for the Associated Students of Colorado State University. Thank you so much for joining us. And make sure you tune in tomorrow night at 6:30 for the Speaker of the Senate debate. And you can vote on RamWeb for who you want to be in office for the Associated Students of Colorado State University now.